Can we close it? Charles, can you close that door? So good morning. Welcome. So I met all of you, I think, but my name is Ed Clawton, if I have not met you. And on the line remotely from California is a colleague of mine, Kevin Vest. I'll be introducing him here, and then he's going to be conducting this with me remotely. In just a few minutes, he's going to give you an actual demo of a dashboard. So let's just jump right in. So what we're going to talk about is the accuracy and the importance of the accuracy of NIBRS data, improving the quality of your police reports, identifying which officers are making a lot of mistakes in reports. Guys, can you think of that one officer, the two of that squad that you're fighting with all the time, right? You're reading these damn reports. Oh no, it's him again. How about the supervisors that just kind of hit that approve button, approve, and send them on through, leaving you guys with a hot mess to deal with, right? And then that all, of course, impacts your error rate. We have to measure our error rate. To certify for NIBRS, as you all probably know, we have to be at a 3% or less error rate. Now, there's two types of errors in reports. There are NIBRS-related errors, and there are departmental-based errors, right? Policy requirements maybe that you have for report writing that the officers did not meet. And the state, what the state sees in terms of mistakes is not what you guys see. When you submit your NIBRS data to the state, their errors are really just very general, high-natured errors. They're not seeing the stuff like in detail from the actual police reports. They're not reading your police reports. They're reading your NIBRS reports. Okay? But what that means is that you've got to make sure these reports are cleaned up and error-free, at least 3% or less. Nonetheless, to guard against being above that threshold. I'm going to show you a quick video. And for the online attendees, let me make sure this comes up. Oh, it may not play on my end. Let's see. For the online attendees, are you able to play the video? Is there a play button? Let me just ask. There's no play button. Yeah, I'm not seeing a play button. Okay. So it's not working. No big deal. It's only about a minute-long video. No worries. So that's a story out of LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department. One of many that have been in the news over the years for having bad crime stats. Milwaukee's flawed crime numbers, debate over Milwaukee's violent crime stats, multiple articles out of Milwaukee a few years ago about how erroneous their numbers were. And you don't want to be in the news, right? They, in Milwaukee, had a very high error rate in their assault category. If any of you have been to our NIBRS, you've heard me talk a lot about the assaults. It's the number one crime type where your classification is going to be wrong. Probably simple assault when it should be aggravated, or aggravated it when it should be simple. Some more headlines. Wrong crime data highlights inconsistent statistics. Why the U.S. needs better crime reporting. Inaccurate LAPD crime stats. This is important stuff. And like I said this morning in my speech, we don't want you to get in trouble for having bad crime data. So what we have to look at is, are your crime stats accurate at your department? Some questions to ask yourself when you get home. Let's ask. Let me get your feedback on this now. Do you at your departments have an assigned records management RMS system administrator who actively stays on top of your what are called tables? Okay, the tables that list all your statutes and corresponding NIBRS codes. That's the main one. But then you've got tables for all kinds of other stuff: property types, property locations. Okay. Every now and then, FBI will issue changes to the NIBRS program that will require that administrator to make those changes. California. Anybody from California? California's got some specific NIBRS requirements. some of the gender information and the bias information that's specific to California, right? Somebody has to make sure those tables, and don't rely on, not to beat up on the vendors, but don't rely on them to do it because they probably will miss it in a lot of cases. How many of you audit yourselves? Regular audits of your NIBRS data. Every month, you should be doing a manual query in RMS. Tell me, manually speaking, run a report, tell me RMS, how many, go through the group A crimes, how many murders, rapes, robberies, blah, 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 blah. Tell me between January 1 and January 30th, I want to know all these types of crimes that happen. It's going to list them all. And then you can run a NIBRS report and see what it says and just do a quick comparison. Do the numbers look right? Okay, we did that every month at our department. Very important you're doing these self-audits. Do you have a thorough quality control process in place? We talked about, how many were you in my last session? Any of you? Okay, you heard me talk about this, right? You've got to have the authority and records. First of all, you have to have what's called a two-tiered review process. Reports should go at a minimum to a sergeant first, and then they should go to records. And records has got to read the reports. To this day, I can't tell you how many agencies I've seen, trained with, or worked with, or consulted for, where the records team is either not authorized, or they're told not to read, or they just don't know that they should read those reports as they come in. If you're not reading the narrative, how in the hell do you know what's supposed to be in the rest of the report? Is all the property in there? Is the status correct? Is the disposition correct? Is the classification correct? And some people say, at larger departments, there's no way we could do that. We don't have time. Well, I can't fix that. But something's got to give. You got to make this a priority if you want your error rate to be at that acceptable 3% threshold. So, how do errors in police reports get corrected? Are your record staff allowed to make certain changes to reports? They should be. We just talked about that earlier. If you missed, that's the public records performance. I think I do that again, don't I? Yeah. If you missed that one, make sure you go to that. We talk about what is the right way and what should you be authorized to fix in police reports. In records, what can you guys fix? Too many departments take this approach where no, records can't fix reports, only officers. And if you, yeah, right. But that's a falsehood. That's a misunderstanding. Reports are a draft until they're final approved by records. So we've got to get the errors corrected quickly. And have your officers ever been trained in NIBRS? If they haven't gotten NIBRS training, forget about it. And do you track the accuracy of individual reports? Do you keep some kind of error sheet or a tracking sheet, what we call a naughty list? So there are two key performance indicators. I talked about that a little while ago, measuring timeliness and accuracy when it comes to NIBRS data. Timeliness, how quick you get reports through, because remember, your NIBRS data has to be in every month. Some states, believe it or not, like Florida, we only reported twice a year. So if that was your case and you haven't switched to NIBRS, you're going to be reporting monthly when you switch to NIBRS. And that means we got to get our turnaround time down and we got to get our error rate down so the data is accurate month to month. The turnaround time is the time it takes to get reports reviewed and approved through the process. Now, as I mentioned, there are two types of reports. There's agency business rules related errors, and there are NIBRS errors. And you really want to be able to track both. Okay, what you see on the screen, and we're going to show you a live version of a dashboard here in just a few minutes. This is a snapshot of, if you're not familiar with dashboarding, it kind of looks like something like this. It's a window that you pull up on your computer, and it's a graphical display of information. A dashboard can be built to display any kind of data you want. Call for service data, call volume, number of, you name it. That if you have the data, it can be tracked and measured and put into a dashboard, so it's easily displayed to you, the viewer, in a very quick, easy to read and understand fashion. That's what a dashboard is. It's a computer, basically kind of like a computer program that shows you quick and easily decipherable types of information. So what we need to do to ensure accuracy is be proactive. Okay? Some of your supervisors hit that approve button and send them on through. They're retired on duty. We have to work to prevent the mistakes from happening in the first place. Okay, so we're going to talk about 4 things to make that happen: auditing, reconciling, report writing, drafting report writing manual, and error rate tracking. Okay, we're going to jump into those briefly, and then we'll get into the dashboard itself. But we got to kind of look at the process. As you all saw in my last session, I'm very much of a process guy. Process is really important. How are we doing business in records? How are we doing business as an agency? What are our rules and procedures? What are our protocols? Every police report has 6 main components to it. Really simple. A police report has the header information. That's your time, date, location, the nature of the offense, the basics, right? And then we have a person section, a property section, and a vehicle section. You will always have to have a person in there. You're always going to have a reporting person, always. It may even be the officer themselves as the reporting party. But you should always have that filled in. Now, the property and vehicle section, maybe you have property involved and vehicles involved, maybe not. You have the narrative section, and you have what I call the case management section at the bottom, which is what tracks case status and case disposition. Something that is very often overlooked in records. How many of you come from a department where case status and disposition from cases that your detective division handles? Your detectives are out making arrests, and your department's approach is, no, the detectives handle that. And records isn't looking at that. How many of you come from a department where your records unit is not reading supplements from detectives? Huge, huge risk. If your record staff isn't reading detective supplements, you have a serious risk management issue to address. Records should be reading everything, even detectives stuff. Because just like patrol supervisors, they're going to miss stuff too. I don't have enough time to get into it in this particular presentation, but I can share you a war story maybe tonight at happy hour of a department I just worked with, where they were over-reporting crime at their city by 27%. Okay, because records wasn't catching the fact that investigations was screwing up case management on their end. We have a case management session, by the way, in this conference. I would highly suggest you go to that case management. Oops. Okay, so what are the types of errors that NIBRS looks at? These are called data elements. There's 52 or 53 data elements that make up a police report. These are all the things that the officers may have to fill in depending on the type of case that they're writing up. Okay, like gang information. Well, maybe there's no gang information. But if they fail to fill in one of these boxes, when it's there's 2 types of boxes. There are required boxes. These are called data elements. I call them boxes. Required, and there's conditional, as you all probably know. We believe and we hope, and the vendors will sell to you that, oh, no, our system will tell you if they're supposed to fill in this box. I've yet to see a system that does that correctly. Don't rely on the software to tell the officers or you guys that this was a box that has to be filled in for NIBRS, because they just don't work right all the time. It happens. So quality control is important. You can never remove the human factor of reading a report or from the quality control process. But the dashboard that you're going to see in just a few minutes is a huge helper to you to do that. These are more data elements. There's 52. There's 52 data elements, right? These are all the things. That means there's 52 boxes that sergeants and records folks need to potentially look at to make sure are filled in correctly. Now, a dashboard is designed, as you will see, to tell you when there's a mistake in one of these 52 boxes. And the dashboard you can pull up, and it will tell you Things like the case number of the case that had a mistake, what the mistake was, who wrote that report, who approved that report, what was the date of the report, all in one screen for you. Imagine being able to run a report in a system, by day or time or shift or squad, per supervisor, per officer, perhaps. You could look up Sergeant Jones and see how many of his reports that he checked and he didn't catch the mistakes. He's just hitting the approve button. That's kind of what a dashboard serves to do. An officer goes to Walmart to report of a stolen purse. Some of you have seen this scenario in our training. Victim states her purse was in the shopping cart. Some guy runs up, grabs that purse, and runs off. What's the NIBRS classification? What kind of theft? Shopping. Her purse is in the shopping cart. Guy grabs the purse and runs. Bingo. Just an all other. A lot of people say it's theft purse snatching, which is one of the categories. It's not purse snatching, because for it to be purse snatching, purse has to be on you. Okay? So the only way you're going to know that kind of mistake, if it's wrong, is by what? Reading the report. No software in the world, no records management system, despite the validation button you can check and the error rate check button you can check, it will not catch these kinds of things because they don't understand. The systems don't read the report and say, hey, no, the officer should have picked this because it was, no software does that. Only humans can catch certain types of errors. Yes, this is a theft all other. Okay. By the way, for the online attendees, I'm going to leave some time at the end for Q&A, just so you guys know. We'll have probably 5 or 10 minutes at the end, and we'll get to your questions as they come in. An officer goes to Target regarding a report of a theft of a cell phone. Victim says she went into the changing room to try on a new dress. She's thrilled with the dress. She goes to pay for the dress. She leaves her phone back in the changing room. She's, oh, I left my phone. She runs back, and the phone is gone. What do you have? And she calls the police. Any other thoughts? Yes, theft from building. Okay, theft from building. Victim of a theft from a motor vehicle, which in some states is called a burglary. Some states is called trespassing to a motor vehicle. Whatever you forget, remember, you got to throw out state law and think in the world of NIBRS. Someone goes into a vehicle and steals something. It's theft from motor vehicle per NIBRS. So they call the police. Someone apparently went into the car overnight. She noticed her car door is slight. She comes out to go to work, right? And the door is slightly ajar. She goes, what the heck? And she looks inside. Somebody rummaged through all of her stuff in the car and calls the police. Officer gets there. Victim tells the officer, she's in a hurry. I got to get to work. I don't want to report. I just want to let you guys know. How many of you are officers in here? Any officers? You ever heard that? Victim says, I don't need a report. I just wanted to let you guys know. Happens all the time. How do you handle this? Mm-hmm. Do you have to write a report per NIBRS? Go like this. Yes. NIBRS requires you to write a report. Now, don't mix that up with discretion. They don't remove officer discretion. That's not what I'm talking about. If an officer goes to a drunk and disorderly and it's a homeless person that's drunk on the street, is that a crime? Possibly. Maybe it's disorderly intoxication. It's not saying the officer has no discretion. A lot of officers will refer that to social services or give them help or whatever, and not write up a criminal report. That's fine. You're allowed to do that. But what the book says is when the police department becomes aware of a crime is reported to the agency that should be documented, you have to write a report. Meaning, if you decide to write a report, just leaving it as a call for service in CAD is not allowed. You have to document it. Okay, so do you have policy on that at your department? when your officers say no report, cleared, back in service, your city, your county is arbitrarily doing what? Unknowingly, arbitrarily. Well, I don't like to use the word falsifying, but they're unknowingly lowering statistically the rate of crime in your city. That is not something you want to happen. Okay? You get in trouble for that. You're going to be accused of cooking the books. And plus, you really want to be transparent. If you're going to fight for budgets and fight for money, don't you want to document how much crime there really is? Now, chiefs might be thinking, no, we don't want to, we don't want to show crime. Well, that's another class. So auditing, conduct regular audits of a sampling of your offenses, read the report, was it classified correctly, is the status and disposition correctly, run those custom queries, pick a few crime types, your big old part one crimes, and see what the system tells you. How many did you have? And then you got to compare that to how many should be counted for NIBRS. The numbers are not going to match. Why? Because still, even under NIBRS, even though everybody thinks NIBRS counts every crime, which it does, right? There's no hierarchy rule in NIBRS now, so it counts everything unless it's what? A lesser included offense. Okay? And so therefore, if you have a break into a house, somebody breaks in, goes in here and steals a television, what are my crimes? Burglary and theft. I stole something. I also committed a theft. But per NIBRS, what do we only count? Just the burglary. So be cognizant of that when you're doing your audits and your self-checks. But what you can do, at least with this sort of manual comparison, is you will find out, and in combination with the use of the dashboard, which you'll see again in a minute, find potentially when the system itself is not reporting things correctly, because I've seen it happen. How many of you have gotten an update from your vendor and it makes the system go all wonky and it stops counting things correctly or working right? You guard against that with these self-audits. And you don't want to be in the news for that kind of problem. So this is my favorite and most important part of NIBRS reporting, is this concept of reconciliation, reconciling reports. Okay? You've got to review, meaning read reports thoroughly through this lens of what I call reconciliation. What's in the narrative of that report should reconcile with the title or the classification, the person's property, vehicle, and case management section, right? So like I mentioned a few minutes ago, if you ain't reading the narrative, you don't know what's supposed to be in the rest of the report. Does what the officer wrote in the narrative align with the rest of the report? Is the system going to report the case with the correct NIBRS code? Criminal enhancer statutes, where I get into a dispute with a pregnant person. Let's say it's a husband and wife, domestic, and they get into a dispute. The dispute escalates, and the husband slaps the wife. She's pregnant. But she doesn't get injured. The baby isn't injured. It's just a minor slap. How is that classified in NIBRS? Well, what is the type? Simple assault. Most state laws will call that what? Aggravated assault. Most states have laws saying if you're pregnant, if you're an elderly person, if you're a police officer, if you're a government official and you get assaulted or battered, it's automatically a felonious crime. Every department that PRI has been hired to audit has found that they're over-reporting assaults by, on average, about 25 to 27% because of these criminal enhancer statutes. The system is automatically, incorrectly upgrading the NIBRS classification because of the way the state law is written, and that's how our code tables are listed in the system. Only a human can catch that. Okay? So my point here is while the dashboard is a great tool and you're going to love it when you see it, it does not eliminate the human component of reading reports. Report writing manual, you've got to have a handbook which provides standards and gets officers, supervisors, records personnel on the same page. The key is preventing mistakes from happening in the first place. It's very, very difficult. Could you all do your jobs and records if you didn't have that NIBRS user manual? How many of you do NIBRS reporting? You know the user manual I'm talking about from the FBI or from your state? How often do you look at that thing? Okay. If we had a front row here full of officers, 10 different officers here, and we give them a big cluster of a scenario, you know, it's a murder with a rape and a robbery and an arson and a shooting, and they did all kinds of stuff. And we say, here's your scenario, write the report. What are you going to get? Yeah, yeah. You're going to get 10 different reports. One of them might be right, two of them might be right, but they're going to, I'm telling you, they're all going to be different. You cannot do this correctly without a guidebook. And if they don't have a report writing manual, like you guys have a NIBRS user manual, they're not going to get it right. Okay?
And that report writing manual, that's a class that you guys offer, right? About how to write reports.
We do. We have a report writing NIBRS. I think it's called report writing NIBRS style.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. And if you have a whole bunch of people you want to train at your department, we give a big group discounts. So.
Do y'all ever go to the agency?
Yeah. Number 4, good, thank you. Number 4 is the error rate. The error rate represents that percentage of mistakes in reports. Okay, this is important, an important definition for you to understand. The dashboard will allow you to calculate your error rate. It's going to show you. You can pull up, for example, all of your assaults for the month, and it'll tell you how many or what percentage of those were wrong. But the error rate the definition must be defined. You must understand that the error rate represents the percentage of mistakes that you guys find in reports, okay, that a sergeant or supervisor didn't catch. We have to make sure that definitionally you all understand that. Okay, that's what we're going to define for the purposes of this, of the dashboard and of your protocols. What it is, right? It's what you guys are finding. So, how many mistakes relative to the total number of reports for the month? If I had 100 reports for the month and 50 of them had mistakes, you got a really bad 50% error rate. Okay? Mistakes that you guys still see in records because you should have that 2-tiered review process in place. How many of you have that 2-tier? It's standard. It's industry standard. I've seen agencies with like 3, 4, and 5 levels. You got to ask yourselves, do you really need that? Sometimes it's too much. Sometimes that bogs your turnaround time down. It's taking too long. You may just something to consider. So this is not a NIBRS class per se, but I'm just going to show you the offenses in red. Or how many of you have not transitioned yet to NIBRS? Wow. Okay. What the hell y'all been doing for the last 12 months? COVID? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the vendors, it's a challenge for them because they have to build the systems according to each state's standards, and each state's NIBRS is a little bit different here and there. So the offenses in red, for those of you that are new to NIBRS, are the things that you're going to be counting on top of what you used to count under UCR, right? We didn't do animal cruelty before. We didn't do bribery. We didn't do all of this stuff. You go from reporting what, like 8 to 9 to 10 index crimes to over I think it's over 50 different crime types now. So that means a lot more work. Don't kill the messenger. It means a lot more work for records. I get it. All the more reason to have a tool that can help you track the mistakes. Gambling offenses is new. Human trafficking, that's been around for a couple of years, but that'll be under NIBRS. Kidnapping, abduction, pornography, prostitution, stolen property, weapons law violations. These are all new NIBRS, or I call it new, but NIBRS has actually been around since the 1980s. Did you know that? The FBI, only about 30% of law enforcement has been doing it since the 80s. Now the FBI is saying everybody has to do it. Then you have your Group B offenses. These get counted only as arrests. These don't show up in your offense data. in your monthly NIBRS reports only when there's an arrest for those types of offenses, kind of like part 1 versus part 2 under the old UCR. So using what we're about to show you, an off-the-shelf analytics software called Power BI. Now, let me clarify. We don't sell this. PRI doesn't sell software, this kind of software. We're starting to get into public record space, but this, you want to write this down, Power BI, Power, common spelling, Power BI. BI stands for, I believe it's business intelligence. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin. I think it's business intelligence or something of that nature. And it's free. You can get it free online from Microsoft. There's 2 versions. There's a free version and a paid version. And Kevin will explain this a lot better than I can in just a minute. But it's a tool that you can use to build something magical. What it does is it talks to the data that's in your RMS database. Most databases today are SQL databases. And you build this tool, this dashboard tool, so that it reads your NIBRS reports and it reads your NIBRS data and displays what you're going to see here in a minute in this beautiful thing on your screen that allows you guys to say, boy, Officer Smith, he's writing some crappy reports. It gives you statistics on errors. Really, a really neat thing. So the software is free. If you have an IT department and you have people who know how to do this stuff, that's your resource. You can use, if you have those kinds of professionals at your city or county, tell them about Power BI, excuse me, or contact us to build it for you. That's an option. So
even the people who have the RMS systems, like we have to manually put our NIBRS in, would it benefit us as well?
yes.
Because our RMS is not, it's Tyler Odyssey.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't talk to NIBRS at all, so she has to key all everything.
To the state. You mean to the state or your key?
Yes.
Yeah. So this ties into your records man. We just built one for a Tyler. How many of you all use Tyler? Kevin's going to show you. We just built, in fact, he's going to show you one that ties into a Tyler system. It's the one we're going to demo. Yes, Power BI essentially pulls the SQL data. It just sort of sits on. Yes. They would have to authorize you tying into that, which is normal though, because you interface with all kinds of stuff today. Tyler, we just did it for Tyler. Tyler let us do. What system do you use? Who do you guys use, Amber?
We have 365 Labs. We have Power BI, but we're not happy. Apparently, we don't know. They're controlling our Power BI.
Who's they?
365.
Oh, okay.
They built four different works.
All right. Well, we'll show you what it looks like. Kevin, you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Ed.
Yes. Beautiful. Say hello to everybody. You got about 40 people in the room. This is Kevin Vest. He is a colleague of mine at PRI. He's a retired, very high-ranking person from a sheriff's office in Florida.
California.
What did I say?
You said Florida.
Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. California. Giving you a hug virtually right now. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
And he was like really way up there. He was like one of the assistant sheriffs, but he's an IT geek. I say that respectfully, Kevin, but he's going to demo the system for you. He actually is really good at building this. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Kevin, if you want to share your screen.
Sure. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, wait. No, I gotta press something. Hang on.
Okay.
I gotta do something on my end. Give me 1 second. Change a setting here. Okay. Hang on one second, Kevin.
Sure, no problem. Well, maybe let me take this time to make a few disclaimers and explain a little bit about my history. So, as Ed said, I'm a retired assistant sheriff from a large Southern California agency. My career, I started out as a deputy, worked my way all the way up, and the main reason why I ended up quite so high was because our agency or my agency was incredibly systems poor, and I had an interest in IT systems, and then began my experience with databases, and one thing led to another, and next thing you know, um, I became a crime analyst, and I worked my way through records, payroll, created a bunch of different systems, mined data extensively for the sheriff and for the executives, ended up over IT. Basically spent the last 10, 15 years of my career living inside databases or spreadsheets and digging through crime data, budget information, payroll information, just basically tons of data that all your agencies have that if you don't have a person that does that, then I was that kind of person. So my background is, as I mentioned, I'm a trained crime analyst. I have several IT degrees. I love databases. I think they're amazing, and I have experience with Power BI and a couple other report application development type of suites. You ready to go, Ed?
Well, I turned your screen off, so try sharing your screen again.
Okay.
I gotta figure this part out.
There we go. I
Yep.
shared it again.
Okay. Okay. Now, the online folks, can you see the dashboard? Okay. Now we got to get it in the room. So hang on one second. Let's see how I do this. I should stop. No, I don't want to do that. How do I get this showing here? There we go. Okay, we're good, Kevin.
Okay. So um, now a little bit about the dashboard. So what the dashboard does is, as Ed mentioned, it connects up to whatever records management system your agency would have. And also, or if you had a data warehouse project where all your crime data ended up, we could connect it up to that. It's a read-only connection, so there is no means for the system to change the data in your records management system. So it just allows you to do a snapshot view into your system and kind of aggregate all that data into a different type of display so that you can easily at a moment see, as Ed mentioned, different your error rates and different crime categories, or you can look to see who has the most errors. One thing it does not do, and this is just based on the design of this current model, is it doesn't really show historical data in the sense like if you check the dashboard on the first of the month and you have, 75% errors, and then you check it on the 25th of the month and you're down to 10% errors, uh, unless your records management system database has a historical logging of data errors and when they were changed, I would not be able to display the data from the first on the 25th, because when you're looking at this data, it's real time as of that moment in time. So if an officer went in and fixed an error, or a records clerk went in and fixed an error, and then you looked at it the next day, that error would be resolved and you wouldn't be able to see what the error was before. So just wanted to put that out there. So this is and the dashboard, the way it looks can be changed. There's a lot of different options. I will admit, as nerdy as I am, as much geeky as I am, one of the things that I am not very good at is making things look incredibly, I don't know, visually stunning. That's just not the way my mind works. I like to get the data on there, and I like to, uh, fulfill the requirements, but I don't necessarily, I'm not the best at making it look stunning. So my apologies if this is not visually as enticing as it possibly could be. So So this is the overall. This project was created for a group of agencies. You'll see over here. There's a group of I think 8 ORI numbers. So they share one RMS system. So this is kind of the developer or highest level view. So I can switch between each of the agencies, and this is just for demo purposes. Each agency is limited to only viewing their ORI number, so they can only see their errors. They that's the way they wanted it configured. So they cannot switch between agencies like I can. So just to put that out there. And the way the system works is, again, it's a design configuration on their part. If you have an IT section and you have access to your database, your IT section could very easily create this. My role is that, in essence, for smaller agencies or agencies that don't have that type of interaction with their IT, is I'm kind of the whole IT person in a box because I know the crime data, I know the crime analysis aspect of it, I know the database aspect of it, and I can kind of create everything all at once because I've worked in all those different roles. So what we're showing you isn't anything that you could not create yourself if you have the resources or you have the expertise to do it. So this is the first page, NIBRS error percentage of all cases. There's date selectors over here. Their preference was about an 18-month rolling time period. So you'll see this project started back in May or June of last year. So if I select on these different months for this agency, it'll show red means errors and green means no errors. So this is of all their cases. It shows that as of that month of June of 2020, they had an error rate of about 74%. I think that was before they actually started NIBRS, because you'll see that it goes down as the time period, as I move forward. You can select the entire year as well. You can select individual months. There's a lot of different options within Power BI. So I'm gonna go to February just because I know they got a lot of data in February. So for this agency in February, they have roughly 40% errors overall. And then there's these different tabs that you can select that drops into different detailed views. So I group them based on my UCR experience. I kind of group these in the UCR categories because, as Ed mentioned, and you know, there's 52 different types of NIBRS crimes, and I didn't want to have 52 tabs. So I kind of grouped them into the similar categories that I was used to. Persons crimes, aggravated assault, simple assault, intimidation, weapons violations. There are other crime types, and if they have no crimes in that category, then those charts do not appear. That's just the way Power BI works. So you'll see that there are sometimes empty boxes, but for different months, the charts will appear. So for this month of February, they have 8 total simple assaults, and of which they have 1 error. So that kind of shows their green is good and red is bad is where this design kind of came from. Down here at the bottom, it shows the error count based on the different types, and then it shows a percentage of the error rate based on percentages. Then the next category is property crimes. Click on that one, and the same kind of thing. There's different categories based on the different subcategories of NIBRS. And again, it just shows the error rate and the error count based on these different categories. And so we can go into drug crimes, and same kind of thing, frauds, a lot of red, but again, the numbers are smaller. They only have 2 counterfeiting forgery crimes, so they have a 50% error rate because they have 1 error. And I created the oh so popular miscellaneous category for all the NIBRS ones that are just kind of I can't group somewhere else. And then we get down here into the raw detailed information, which is the error totals by crime type. So this is kind of a spreadsheet view that shows that they have 1 bad check error, 5 credit card error totals. And then you can get into, these are a lot more of the raw, like Ed was mentioning, who wrote the report and what the report number is. So this shows that Officer Fogel wrote the report, and then some of these show approved and not approved. This depends on your utilization of your RMS. So if your agency, and some of these agencies, if I flipped over to another ORI, you would see that there is no approved by, because some of those agencies are not using their RMS in the way that the supervisors approve it within the system. So if that is a decision your agency has made, then that limits my ability or your IT's ability to pull data and see who's approving what reports, what their error rate is, and that kind of stuff. I've even done some dashboard type work for agencies, and their officers are not using the RMS at all. It's all paper based, so it's very difficult. Some of the written fields, they're not even matching up as far as is writing the report. So it really goes back to how much you're utilizing your system, because then there's more data in the system for me to be able to access, or your IT to be able to access, to give you much more information on your dashboard. So then there's an error details report that shows what the error is for the different reports. So it's possible to have numerous errors on one report. So shows that this report has 4 errors: property value missing, offender drug use is missing, offender computer use is missing, and the ethnicity of offender is missing. So this kind of gives you a rough idea at a glance what the problems are with a specific report number.
So Kevin,
Yes, Ed.
so let me just jump in here. It's see, because this case number is the same. So you can tell that the case numbers are the same, you get 4 mistakes. So imagine how awesome that would be for you to be sitting at your desk and pull up real quick a listing that shows all the different types of mistakes and what the case numbers were right there at your fingertips. And you don't have to go searching case by case by case. This is showing you the whole shebang for the month, right? So, Kevin?
Okay. And then and how this is configured is, again, was for the customer that we configured this for. If you wanted additional information on here, like we wanted to know who wrote the report or the incident date, I could easily add another column that showed the date the report was taken. We could even put in like the crime type potentially. Is it approved or not approved? Again, that goes back to what data is in your records management system so that I can access it and then use it to display meaningful information to you to help you answer questions or to resolve issues as quickly as possible. And then another tab is the error by crime type. This goes and shows, breaks it down by the NIBRS crime type, and then what the error count is, and then by the number of who wrote the report. So you can kind of look to see a pattern of if who is having problems with different types of reports. A training item perhaps, or just a means to, at a glance, have a better idea of what's occurring within your data. These reports or these spreadsheets you can filter them, you can copy and paste them out, you can export them into Excel, so that you could, if you wanted to, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning, if you wanted to look at your NIBRS errors on the 1st of the month and then export that out into Excel and save it, you could do that. And then at the 25th of the month or near the end of the month, you could look at the dashboard again and then export the errors again. And then you could kind of keep your own historical to see who's having trouble at the beginning of the month and who's resolved them by the end of the month, or who's not resolving them quickly. There's a way you could do that. Potentially, again, that could be done based using the data out of your records management system, but it kind of depends on your vendor and how that data is logged in your system.
Yes, question coming in.
So all of our RMS data goes into Power BI. Power BI has all the NIBRS rules written in it to where it checks our data.
Yeah, question, I'll repeat the question. Does the dashboard have the NIBRS rules written into it, right?
Right, so that's
So-
when you're getting these errors, it's
Yes.
checking it against the NIBRS rules versus.
Correct.
what you put into it.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I did is the query that pulls the data in from your RMS is I identified the fields within this is a Tyler system, but within the Tyler system where where they're storing the NIBRS information. And then I do that validation to say, okay, if it's a property crime, then it needs to have this type of information. And if it's and we're still customizing this a bit because they do have some agency rules where they don't want certain things to show, and that can be done as well. But yes, that validation is something that I create when I pull your data and I check the different fields within your application within the database to see if the values are in there. And not only are the values in there, are those values correct based on your what are they called? Data tables, Ed? What's the correct term you use for that? I'm sorry.
Code tables.
Code tables. There we go. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the code tables are really important, right? That's the, I don't know if I mentioned those. It's every system has this listing in the back end, like a big spreadsheet with all your state statutes and all your what the NIBRS code should be for all 4, 5, 6,000 of those, which is typically how many there are. And if you have errors in that table, no matter what you do, it's called GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. That table has to be perfect. So
And coincidentally, with this project, we did identify quite a few errors in their code table that was causing incorrect errors to be reported. So that it's a good second check or third check on the accuracy of the code table to make sure everything is correct so that you're reporting data accurately. Any other questions or anything else you'd like to see? I mean, I can, um, let's see here. Let's see different agencies.
question?
Just how, will it do, I know this is based on NIBRS stuff, but what if like my sheriff, he wants to know how many burglars we've had. He wants a statistical count, not necessarily a NIBRS count. But
Yes.
a state statute count.
Raw data. It's called raw data.
Yeah,
Yes.
so he wants that. Is that capable of doing it also?
The question,
Or-
yeah, let me repeat the question for the online group. So the question was, can Power BI be used or built to track and report what's called raw data or statistics based on state statute? How many real burglaries were there? How many thefts were there? Not NIBRS data. And the answer is yes. That's the beauty of Power BI. Power BI is not built for NIBRS. Power BI can be used for any kind of data, any kind of industry, any kind of profession. It's just taking computer data and it's being built by someone who knows how to do this stuff to show this information. So yeah, it can be used for anything. It could be used for calls for service data. It could be used in law enforcement. Anything you could think of.
Yeah, and actually, not to toot my own horn, but for the smaller agencies, if you do not have the IT staff and you're constantly getting questions from your chief or your executives wanting that type of information, and you just no way to do it other than just dumping raw data into Excel and trying to count it up. I mean, the majority of my career, especially the last 10 years, I spent the majority of my time in employee data. Everything from overtime totals to schedules to uh, shift differential calculations, scheduling information. I mean, it's Power BI is able to do all that. It just depends on how you want to view it. Do you want the pretty graphics, or do you want raw statistical totals? I mean, I've worked for executives that they don't like the charts and they just want the raw data. So that's possible as well. Or you can make it visually appealing and go that direction. So agencies have my experience with agencies is you have a huge amount of data, but you have very, very difficult time getting to the data to answer the questions that you have on a daily basis or even a weekly basis. That is the beauty of a dashboard, or that's the beauty of a Power BI type of application, is the giving you the ability to access the data that you need to answer questions with when you can do it, instead of just saying, I know we got the data, but I have no idea what the total is.
You know, if there's a class that is in depth on how to, like my agency, I'm an analyst and I do IT, so it's something that we could learn.
I don't know, Kevin. Question is there possibly a Microsoft training course on how to do Power BI, how to build it for
Yes.
people?
Yeah, there is. They offer courses. They offer individual training or online training. There's even courses at community colleges, et cetera, or online to learn Power BI. Learning Power BI itself really isn't all that difficult. The challenge will be connecting up the system so that you can get access to the data. And that varies based on the database you're connecting to. Power BI can pull in data from spreadsheets, from obviously databases, all different types of databases. So it really kind of depends on what your data sources are. Um, and if your IT section, if you're connecting up to databases, you're going to need potentially some support there in order to get the connection set up correctly. But once it's set up, I mean, I set this connection up, geez, a year and a half ago, and I haven't had to do anything to maintain it. It's just a matter of refreshing the data and making changes to the reports as to how they want it to appear.
Questions? Right off the internet, just go online and Google Power BI, B as in boy, BI, and you download it from Microsoft's website. It's free.
What is
And-
the free versus the paid? Because our vendors saying we have to pay.
Well,
That's
the
how we're gonna-
biggest, yeah, the biggest difference I found is it really comes down to if you're going to be the developer and you're going to be the one viewing the reports, the free version will probably work fine. If you're going to have an IT person or you're going to create reports and then you're going to share those reports, and this is what this dashboard is, basically a report. If you're going to share that with other people so they can click on a link either on your website or on their desktop so that they can view the report, you're probably going to need the paid version. That's the biggest difference between the free and the paid is, are you going to share the reports you create with other people?
And if they can't afford that, alternatively, can they print this stuff out or download it and save it like in an Excel or some other sheet and share it that way?
That is correct. Yes, you could do it that way as well.
I think she just busted her IT department.
Oh my gosh. Our
Not our
vendor.
Other questions?
I had something, I just lost it, Ed. Give me a second to think about what I was just going to say. It had to do with the licensing. I don't recall. I think I covered it. Oh, that's what it was. Okay. Most agencies have an enterprise agreement or perhaps an enterprise agreement with Microsoft, either with the county or the city has an enterprise account or something like that. So if that is the case, I mean, pretty much everybody is using Outlook or, Word and Excel and everything else. So if you probably have an enterprise agreement, Power BI could be already included in your enterprise agreement, either with the city or the county or even your agency, and it's just not being used. If not, you could potentially add a couple licenses, a handful or something like that, if you're going to be sharing reports, and that could cover your needs completely at no additional cost or a very small cost if you're just adding one or two licenses. So that would be something I would suggest right away. Is my agency, we had a large number of Power BI licenses that we were never even using, so it didn't cost us anything to start using Power BI because we already had it in our enterprise agreement.
Yeah, just check with your IT people on that. Any other questions? Yes.
separate harness. Or the county, we enter into, or the office enters into the web. So that is the report, the record system, whatever we approve of, it goes to our project.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's reported.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we could do it both ways. I mean, would it be able to use both systems?
Well, I think what you're describing is the mobile side versus the records management system side, or is it two different vendor products? Same vendor. What
They're the same vendor. It's just the older version.
what company is it?
Yeah.
Oh, you're okay. Do you know which version of Central Square? They're like, could be Central Square bought all kinds of different. Okay, it was Tritech.
But we also use.
So they're in the process of going to a web version fully, I believe is the route that they're going to go. But to answer your question, it can be set up to work. It just needs to tie into ultimately to your records. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump on your
No.
answer here, but
No, you're correct. It really doesn't matter where the data is, as long as you or your IT or I can get access to it. It doesn't matter if it's hosted in the cloud or it's locally on your server or in a data center with the county or something like that. As long as you can establish that connection, then this type of application could be created and it could work. Also, one thing to add is that these reports are available also on mobile. So if it doesn't require any additional configuration or anything. It's just a matter of changing it so that uh, the application knows that it's going to be displaying on a mobile device, and this will appear on mobile as well. So if that's something you're interested in, shouldn't be any additional charge for that. It's just a matter of reconfiguring the application and going to it off a mobile device, and it'll render on mobile as well.
Okay. Our RMS system has NIBRS rules built into all of it. So I'm assuming these same reports can be ran of how many NIBRS errors after the report is approved.
So I don't know. Let me repeat the question for the audience. She's saying that her RMS has all the has all the NIBRS rules and validations built into it. Can you're asking if the RMS can do this? Basically, is that the question?
What we find is sometimes they'll override. We have the capability currently to override reports. So can we see what I guess like common errors or whatever are those?
Yeah. So every RMS has the NIBRS rules and validations built into it. They all do. What this does is allows you to expand on the capabilities of your current system. So you can tell that you can build a dashboard to pull and analyze whatever you want it to look at in any really any way. So
Could we take our dashboard, put it in here, and then challenge our vendor and say, okay, errors are getting, we're not matching our RMS errors?
Kevin, did you hear that?
No, I did not.
She's saying, could they take their NIBRS reports out of your RMS and put that data into a dashboard and compare?
Compare it to our RMS.
Just
results.
okay, I see. You want to validate the accuracy of your RMS NIBRS data compared to what the dashboard which shows.
Is that possible?
Well, it is, but you got to be tricky with that because both. Correct me if I'm wrong. Either way, the data is going to be based on what's in the system. Kevin, I don't know if you.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, it could be done. What I would suggest is, instead of, it kind of depends on each RMS. I mean, I'd have to see inside the RMS to see how they're displaying or storing their data and stuff like that. But it would be possible to create a dashboard that allowed you to cross-check your RMS, because what this dashboard does is it goes directly to each field in the database where the NIBRS data is stored, and then looks at the values and confirms if they're correct based on the code table. So as Ed mentioned earlier in the presentation, if you receive an update and your NIBRS was working fine before, and then you get a new update from your vendor, and now all of a sudden your reports are askew or the numbers aren't totaling correctly, because I've heard this quite a bit from different agencies as well. It's just because that their update, they missed something or they made an error and there's a bug that they need to iron that out. So instead of relying on the vendor's totals, I would prefer to go directly to the tables, and that way you could cross-check the accuracy of the vendor provided reports. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. She says yes. She liked your answer.
Okay.
I think we just created a war between that agency, her agency, and her vendor. But
Just opened our eyes to what's available.
other questions? All right, let me switch. We've got a couple more minutes. Let me just check online and see how our online audience is doing and get to their questions. So give me 1 second. Right, let's see here. Contact PRI. Just go to our website, policerecordsmanagement.com. So he's with PRI. He'll put you in touch with him. So there's an online question that came in. The online question says, the errors that are shown by Power BI, do they come from cases that may show as past edits in our system, or is it reading the errors that our software already reflects? That's a great question.
It's reading the data as it exists in the system and using the validation or the code tables to confirm if the entry is either correct or is either missing or correct. So hopefully that answers the question. So it's a real-time view of the data as of the moment that the data was refreshed in the system. For this agency, the data refreshes like once a day. If you wanted that data to refresh every hour, it could refresh every hour. What it does is it pulls the data from your RMS system and stores it locally on the Power BI server. So it's a performance issue. So if you only wanted to pull once a day to refresh, then in essence you're looking a day behind. But if you want to refresh every hour or every 30 minutes, it's a much more real-time view of the data that you're looking at.
Any other online questions?
Did that answer your question, Jennifer? I'm not sure if it did. Hopefully it did.
And Tara, I see your question, Tara. Yes, we do. Just contact us if you want assistance with it.
Yeah, I would say it would catch things that your software misses because it would be going directly to the tables. And I would be working with you to, like we did with this agency, to develop what they want to display and what they want to ignore. So, for example, and this is where my experience comes in, is if for a property crime, I'm trying to remember one of the examples. They wanted some different fields to, or some of the NIBRS errors to not come up because it didn't apply. And I'm trying to think of what they were.
Like the lesser included offense or something, or
Yeah, or maybe it was, okay, how about this? This is a better one. If the first round of the dashboard that I came up with, it showed a lot of uh, offender racial code was not entered.
oh yeah,
So revisions that I did was that if there was no offender listed or no suspect information provided on the offender, then it would not provide, that error would not come up because there was no known suspect. So that's the type of changes that can be made to suit the agency's preference to eliminate erroneous errors, because every report was showing that, because there was, every report had was throwing that error until I fixed that. So now it only would show that field being an error if an offender was entered and that value entered in the racial code was either invalid or was missing completely. Now that would show an error, whereas before it showed on every single report.
mm-hmm. Any other questions?
So what I was thinking, how would be I actually reports?
Well, I wouldn't say for you, because but you don't ever want to take out the human component, right, of checking reports, because there are going to be plenty of types of mistakes that no software, Power BI, nothing. Yes. Yeah. It's a way for you to have a place to go, to have a very easy way to see all the mistakes in reports and who made them, what they were. but it doesn't remove the need. It doesn't remove the purpose and responsibility of still checking reports like you all are probably doing today. Hopefully, you're still going to have to do that. It's just going to give you some data that you can say, what's your error rate? Who's making the most mistakes? What are the most common types of mistakes? Who do we need to talk to about this? It's a lot of valuable information. So, see if there's something just popped up here, guys. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Kevin, anything else?
No, I think I've covered everything I wanted to go over.
So, with that, Kevin, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. And I think I'm going to see you again today, or is it tomorrow? Let's look at our schedule.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow, 10:30. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. And we're
welcome.
coming up on lunch. We're going to have lunch here at 12 in Delta D. All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.